Okay, hi. As a retired U.S. Navy senior chief, I found this video of retired Army General Milne inspiring and very interesting. The general retired from the U.S. Army after serving over 40 years, and as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he was a senior military officer concerning all things military. Although he retired a few years ago, his comments are still relevant because the felon has won the 2024 election, the felon being Trump. But the felon has not changed at all. I expect he will continue to try to get away with as much shit as he can. The general was chosen by Trump for his position with the Joint Chiefs, but after a short time of working with him, the general quickly saw what type of person the felon is. And in this video you're about to see, the general talks about what we in the military are obliged to take an oath to. Now, during his first term, years ago, the felon talked about the possibility of having General Milne killed. I see that as an illegal order and will not expect any military person to obey that order. The second part of this video, you will see discussion about the likely possibility that the felon may give an illegal order. This is a bad situation we now have, folks, because anyone, regardless of their mental state or lack of good judgment, can run for president of the United States. Please watch this video.
I'm deeply honored to have worn the cloth of this nation for 43 and a half years, and I'm humbled to have served as the 20th chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But today is not about anyone up here on this stage. It's not about the President, the Secretary of Defense, me, CQ. It's not about us. It's about something much larger than all of us. It's about our democracy. It's about our republic. We are unique among the world's armies. We are unique among the world's militaries. We don't take an oath to a country. We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
That wannabe dictator he's referring to Trump. Trump wants to be the dictator.
We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that is America, and we're willing to die to protect it. Those values and ideas are contained within the Constitution of the United States of America, which is the moral North Star for all of us who have the privilege of wearing the cloth of our nation. It is that document that all of us in uniform swear to protect and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic. And domestic being that idiot felon Trump.
Those who sacrificed themselves on the altar of freedom in the last 2.5 centuries of this country must not have done so in vain. The millions wounded in our nation's wars did not sacrifice their limbs and shed their blood to see this great experiment in democracy perish from this earth. No, we the American people, we the American military must never turn our back on those that came before us. And we will never turn our back on the Constitution. That is our North Star. That is who we are, and that is why we fight. Thank you, and may God bless our military, and may God bless the United States of America.
Here's the second half of the video.
If Donald Trump gives unlawful orders to the U.S. military as commander-in-chief, will they resist? Will they ignore them? Will they stop Trump from trying to use U.S. military troops against civilians on domestic soil, which is against the law and the Constitution? I'm Michael Popak. This is the Legal AF YouTube channel. Now more than ever, we need you to subscribe to keep us going on the other side now of the election. And I'm at the intersection, and I'm going to talk about the firewalls that we have, the levers that we have to contain an out of control Donald Trump, who never had a good relationship with the Department of Defense the first time around, didn't have a good relationship with the generals, fired many of them, accused many of them of treason after he left office, and even threatened to have at least one hanged and killed in the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley. But if they're given an order, don't they have to follow the commander-in-chief in the civilian chain of command? To remind people, or to lay it out for people from around the world that watch our channel, our military, unlike other countries, in order to avoid coups, in order to have civilians always in charge, that even the highest brass general, 5-star, even if they made a 6-star general, is still beneath a commanding commander-in-chief in the president and the head of the Department of Defense, Department of the Army, of the Navy, Air Force, Space Force, National Guard, Coast Guard, and the rest. Civilian control, civilian chain of command defines our military, and that's a good thing. We know from the first time around that General Milley had conversations with his counterpart in China and said, don't worry, we're not going to let Donald Trump start World War III, or words to that effect. That's the beginning.
In other words, the general was looking out for the best interest and security of the country and the planet, as a matter of fact. Because if we went to war with China, then the entire planet could be in danger.
The end of the relationship between Donald Trump and General Mark Milley by telling our enemies that I'm putting my hand between Donald Trump and the nuclear weapon. Good thing. That, of course, annoyed, pissed off Donald Trump. Now, what if he does it again?
Fuck him.
We already know that the Pentagon, Lloyd Austin heading it as a former general, but now civilian, is already doing tabletop exercises, internal strategies of leadership about what would happen if Donald Trump gave an illegitimate order, an unlawful order. It's easy to walk through the scenario of Donald Trump as commander-in-chief, or the head of the Department of Defense will be some sort of meat puppet for Donald Trump, gives a lawful order. It's got to be followed, chain of command. That's what happens. They have a constitutional oath that they swore to uphold, to follow the chain of command and to protect this country. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an unlawful one. We know Donald Trump pushed the envelope last time. For instance, he had the park behind the White House cleared by the U.S. military, full-blown U.S. military, so he could make a photo op walk across the park to a church nearby with his upside-down Bible. Mark Milley at the time said he would never allow the military to ever get sucked into politics again. And Lloyd Austin, the Biden head of the Department of Defense, he just issued a memo on the eve of the election or right after the election telling his leadership and the command structure and all members of the military that he expects an orderly transition, that the military is the finest in the world, that they will remain independent, and I don't mean independent outside the chain of command, I mean independent not being political, that they will not allow themselves to get drawn into politics. Now, let's separate some things that Donald Trump has threatened or that are in Project 2025 and play out the illegal, unlawful order scenario, which also there's an oath for them not to follow an unlawful order. And you can see where the lawyers and the leadership are going to get together and talk about it. And it may not be at the Department of Defense level. I'm talking about the brass. I'm talking about the 3, 4, and 5-star generals and admirals. And what do they do when they get the unlawful order? Let's talk about an order. We'll walk through the scenario of lawful versus unlawful. Terrible game we have to play, but we're going to have to play it with Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to put U.S. military troops to strengthen our border, especially at the southern border, to help reinforce customs and border patrol resources. Let's just face facts. Nothing that Donald Trump wants to do, from deporting 11 million people to shoring up the southern border, can be done with the current budget and the current personnel. Let me repeat. The current budget and the current personnel are insufficient by about tenfold to do a deportation of 11 million people and to strengthen the southern border. Right. They're not, in the amount of people that it would take, they'd have to bring in and hire immediately, and it will take years to hire the amount of people. The way to short circuit the budget and the allocation issue through Congress is to have the military do it. Order the military to the southern border on domestic soil on this side of the United States, of course, to shore up those things. Some people might think that sounds like a great idea. We should have the military on domestic soil. And then other people think, isn't that a violation of things like the Posse Comitatus Act, which is put in place right after the Civil War to make sure that we didn't use federal troops against American people or in American cities, even in this scenario? Now, Donald Trump will claim under the Alien Sedition and the Alien Espionage Act, or the Alien Sedition Act, that we're under attack, that these are people sneaking in through the chicken wire, the barbed fence, holding babies to try to get to freedom. We're under attack and they have to be repelled by the military. That's sort of a gray area for ethicists within the military to guide the brass about whether that's lawful or unlawful. My belief is that while it's borderline unlawful, that the military will pick their battles, no pun intended, and that they will allow themselves to be deployed to the southern border. National Guard also falls into that category. What if he wants, though, let's take it to the next thing on the continuum. Donald Trump orders the military to take the lead in rounding up, processing, putting into internment camps, and deporting 11 million people. That would, by the way, even if you employed the entire military to do that, it would take a couple of years, lots of planning. It wouldn't happen on day one, as Donald Trump likes to say. It would happen, if it happened in day 366, I would be shocked, even with the military. And every resource that Donald Trump would deploy from the military to handle his deportation fantasy is making us less safe in national security. It's compromising our national security. It's one less war that they can fight because they're fighting the war for Donald Trump politically. So now we're into the area along the continuum where I see this as being not only an unlawful order of the commander-in-chief and of his civilian leadership below him, but one that the brass and the military may sort of link arms and oppose. Now, what could they do? They could not follow through with it. Donald Trump could start mass firings of generals and admirals. He could promote people that are Trumpers. You could even move them up from the bottom. Why not? Take a lieutenant, take a captain, make him a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star general overnight. Commander-in-chief can do whatever he wants. And he's immune from being sued and or from criminal prosecution related to it based on this United States Supreme Court decision over the summer. So, but, listen, there's going to be, you think protests in the streets happened the first Trump administration? Wait till you see this one, when he tries to use the military, who have resisted, and there's resignations in order to avoid deployment for a civilian operation on domestic soil to round up human beings, other human beings who are looking to live in dignity. And as I said, it's not just finding them, it's finding them, processing them, putting them into temporary housing, which is a concentration camp, and then deporting them and coordinating the politics and the diplomacy of it on the other side. What do you mean? You just show up in Mexico and open the doors and say, here? I don't think that's how travel works, nor how a giant transport plane holding a lot of illegal people with little or no identity or identification in another country, some of which they've never lived in. I don't think that's how that's going to work. Okay, so that's where I think we're going to start seeing line drawing by the U.S. military, the civilian brass, most of whom do not respect Donald Trump, don't think he's a threat to America, and are going to be on high alert not to follow unlawful orders.
Okay, I believe the next few years will be a tough test of our Constitution. Will it provide the intended system of checks and balances like it's supposed to between the executive, judicial, and legislative branches? I'm not sure. I suspect it should, as written, but the people in all three branches may not be totally objective and possibly motivated by their own self-interests. And that's unfortunate. Now, I believe the felon needs to be treated as a domestic enemy because life as we know it in this country will soon come to an end. The idiot felon will cause much higher inflation, jobless rates will steeply climb after the effects of President Biden's policies begin to fade. But I have faith that the senior military will stay objective and not follow any illegal orders that the off-balance nut in the White House may try to issue. Thank you for watching. Oh, by the way, if you'd like to be updated on any videos that we release on this channel, please hit the subscribe button below. Thank you for watching.